Welcome to the show. We're going to start tonight's show with our weekly election update. The candidates are avoiding the Social Security discussion. Jim, will the public even notice?
I think they'll notice at some point. I think there are bigger fish to fry at this point. The violence we saw overseas, the concept of whether Hillary Clinton's going to be in jail, the concept of whether somebody's going to shoot Donald Trump, or I mean, they had the guy at the
in Vegas.
Yes, I mean this is just one crazy cycle, Ron. I don't know what it's like the greatest TV show ever.
The greatest show on earth.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it is totally unreal how it's unfolding. The true issues aren't being talked about.
Are they ever, though?
Sometimes.
Sometimes they are, but if you don't have answers to something, Trump doesn't have an answer to anything, so he has to make up some volatile message that gets everybody off script. So when that happens, it creates chaos.
Divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer.
And I think the Social Security issue, right, is an important issue because we have been teetering on Social Security becoming insolvent for a long time because the reality is we've taken a lot of money out of it and used it for other purposes. That is an important issue. Nobody really is going to have a silver bullet answer to it. It's depressing because we have this election cycle more so than I think any election cycle I've seen in my, not quite as many years as some of us have seen, but fairly long period of time. It's the most farcical, most ridiculous election cycle. I mean, we have a choice between somebody who may potentially be a felonious liar and, in all honesty, somebody who is an outright fascist, and unashamedly and fully admittedly so.
So I think Social Security is important. I think $20 trillion in debt is important.
Yeah.
And again, I will go back to the fact that yes, this is crazy, but the Bernie and the Trump were born out of the fact that the American population, in my opinion, at least the voting population, is just tired of both parties making promises and then failing to keep them each and every time they get into office.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that the danger that comes with that is the fact that we could very well, if we swing a certain way, put somebody who is not only a danger for the next election cycle or the next 4 years, but it is really a danger to the world in terms of their worldview, their xenophobia, their pretty much anything you can describe as a negative description. Now, I think there's something interesting that came out that I heard, which is it was either the CBO or one of the other impartial budget groups out there did a study looking at the political or the financial plans of both candidates, and they were anticipating if Donald Trump went through with all of his points that he's proposed all through his campaign, we would end up, I think, $15 to $20 trillion farther in debt. Whereas, Hillary Clinton would add several hundred million, or several hundred billion rather, to debt. I think we suffer, and I think you're right in a lot of what you said, Jim, in terms of the fact that we're sick and tired of the political establishment as it exists. But the biggest problem we have is an electorate, a voting public that has absolutely no depth when it comes to the issues.
Well, hey, we've got reality TV is so daggone popular. I am not surprised that our presidential election has turned into a reality TV show.
Ron, you ran for public office.
Yes.
Did you find when you were running that the electorate, the people on whose doors I know you knocked, did they know about the issues?
They do.
They do.
A lot of people really know about the issue. I mean, there's Trump. Trump is all things to all people at a certain point now. He's got a lot of great ideas. But you know what he's going to do? He's going to use recycled people that's been there doing just what that's created the problems. Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich is on the top of the list for vice president. Now, what happened to Newt Gingrich when Bill Clinton had his escapade? Okay? Newt Gingrich was doing something the same thing. So what did Newt do? They passed it on to Livingston. Livingston couldn't pass muster, so they give it to Denny Hastert. Denny Hastert went to prison a couple weeks ago. Now, what does that tell you? And it's all recycled.
Well, but we recycle everything,
and
the problem is
system is broken.
The problem is that we go back. this whole vetting process of this campaign. I read today where the NRA is going to run, I don't know how many, $20 million, $40 million worth of ads having to do with Benghazi. I think Benghazi is
Boy,
awful.
that's not surprising. Gee, if there's anything not surprising.
My point is that, I fault Hillary Clinton for Benghazi. I believe that. But you know what? The American public, at some level, right, wrong, or indifferent, and I believe it's wrong, but the American public has spoken and said, we don't care.
What did McCarthy say? What did McCarthy say? He was going to be Speaker of the House to replace Boehner. He said, boy, did we ever do a number on Hillary Clinton with this commission. We just buried her. She's lost point after point. It was all dog whistle politics. You saw it coming. Benghazi, emails, all of that is back into our dog. I wish I'd have brought my dog whistle.
I got your dog
You got
whistle on my
dog
computer.
whistle?
We'll get it out for the
But
next
I've,
segment.
I've heard other people starting to use dog whistle politics. This whole thing has become dog whistle politics. Wait till Trump's vetted. He hadn't been vetted yet.
Oh, I understand that. No, I
His
think there's
character?
I think there's plenty more to come, and I think
yeah.
I think
Well,
the
look at the Trump
Democrats are pretty
University.
smart in that.
Well, and the reality here in the last little bit that has occurred is that it's coming to the surface that he really didn't seem to have had a plan for the general election. Hasn't really raised any money, and of course he's saying that he really didn't raise any money until June and blah, blah, blah. There was no money, there's no ground game in most states, including battleground states like North Carolina. He has one single staffer.
But
One staffer.
he's counting on the fact that he's going to get free media coverage because he'll say something crazy, and then
Yeah.
the media will cover it for 3 days. And,
But he's funding it. He said, I'm funding my own campaign.
well, he was. But
Oh, he was?
Yeah, that's
Did he lie?
That's changed. Well, I think he
Only
did.
Hillary lies, right?
I think no. I didn't say that. I think he did fund his own campaign through the primary. I think he's now decided that he can, and there was some kind of agreement signed with the Republican National Committee for funding for Donald Trump and fundraisers and so
Once he
forth.
scrubbed everything that was embarrassing before he has to do his
Right.
financial disclosures, then now he's ready to take the people's money.
Is that going to be before income taxes?
Probably
Before
not.
they're released, if he releases them.
If.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, should he get money from the government if he doesn't release his taxes?
Well, I don't think
Taxing
releasing
the
taxes
rich is unconstitutional. It's wrong. We should stop it. Therefore, he is not under any sort of obligation to release his tax records.
Is that right?
I don't think
No,
he.
no,
I don't
it's
think
not.
he is under obligation to release his tax records. I think he should. I think there's a significant precedent for that. But
What's he hiding, Jim?
I don't know. But I'm sure
Millions.
he's hiding something.
Millions.
My guess is, frankly, you want my honest opinion?
small
my guess,
Caribbean
my
island.
guess is number one, he's not worth as much as he says he is. Number two, he's probably in debt up to his eyeballs. And number three, there's probably some questionable transactions in there.
You think?
Oh yeah.
I think you're probably 100% right on every one of those points.
Yes.
He's a businessman.
Which would be less damaging? Him just saying, no, I'm not going to release my tax records, or him releasing his tax records and somebody finding something? I think he's being smart. He's playing it safe.
I don't know what's in his mind, and that's part of the problem with him. Is I don't know that you can guess from 1 minute to the next what he's going to do.
Is his
He's going to build a
campaign
wall
man-
around his taxes.
Yeah.
The greatest wall. And he's going to get the IRS to pay for it.
Is his campaign manager, is it Burnett?
Well, Lewandowski got fired, who's now working for
I'm
CNN.
talking about the guy that did The Apprentice. What was his, Mark Burnett?
Oh, no.
Well, why not? He's doing a reality show. So if he's doing a reality show, what
Okay.
TV producer
I get your
doing
point.
it?
It's not a
I get
bad
your
idea.
Who's
point.
directing it?
Well, that's really not a bad idea.
His corporate sponsors.
Ron, we should talk about that for local elections. There's a couple of candidates I'd like to follow around and make a reality show about who shall remain nameless
For this
while.
segment.
for a while. For this segment, anyway. But
Later on the flip
we've got,
side.
the fact of the matter is we've got two rich people, because Hillary's pretty rich, and and
She's
so
not
is-
struggling
Yeah, she's not
financially.
struggling. We got two rich people arguing back and forth about what's best for the middle class. You can't really relate to either of them.
So what do we
So-
think? Can we change the race for a minute? What do we think about Ami Hober versus the incumbent in the 6th congressional district?
I'm going to say I hope that she can beat him, but I'm not going to put money on it.
I got to tell you, I think he's been a pretty good congressional delegate personally.
I would agree with
Except
you.
And I'm
he
a
doesn't
Republican.
always support our.
What? Okay, guess
Views
what?
out here.
He doesn't always.
What
That's
are
better
our
than he.
views out here?
Well,
Kenny?
for one thing, we're very strong on Second Amendment, and I would say his recent sit down, which we were going to talk about here a little bit later in the program, him sitting down with the rest of the people in the Congress, that was a little against what most of his
honestly,
constituents believe in.
I think that
But let me ask.
that's a little bit more of a nuanced thing, right? So
I agree.
there is something that needs to be said for being a part of a caucus. And look, even those of us who are very, very supportive of the Second Amendment don't necessarily believe that you shouldn't have proper regulation in place.
And-
now, well-enforced regulation that actually works. So I don't, again, having gotten my handgun qualification permit here in Maryland, having had to do a full fingerprint background check, I don't care. The government certainly already has my fingerprints because I was in the Army and I was in a whole lot of other places. It doesn't bother me as long as the government doesn't keep a record of what guns I own. I would rather that I have a card that says that, hey, I've been vetted the same way as being pre-checked for boarding by the TSA.
But this whole thing of terror watch list and should they be able to buy guns, that's a no-brainer in my book.
Except
nobody-
that people end up on those lists for
yeah.
no reason and they
And
never
there's no
get
due
purged.
process.
And because the federal government
introduce
has
due
made-
process. You can't just introduce due process. Give people a way to get off of that list.
But then have a mechanism that actually works and doesn't just act as an impediment the same way that the current NCIS, the current background check system that the FBI runs, which is understaffed, overworked, and oftentimes results in a delay, not because there's anything to say for somebody's record, but because they don't have anybody to examine it.
All right, and you're going to get the last word on that, but we're going to pick this right back up after the break. So, next up on the flip side, a good old-fashioned sit-in on the floor of Congress. Stay tuned to find out why when we return.